class, and we're going through a book written by Alice A. Bailey called The Treatise on White Magic. She received this information from a 250-year-old master called Dual Kul, who lives in Tibet. And it's pretty profound writing overall. What's that? And it's we're on Rule 10, and we Rule 10 is quite extensive, covers quite a bit of material. Let me read this over again. Rule 10 reads, as the waters bathe the form created, they are absorbed and used. The form increases in its strength. Let the magician thus continue until the work suffices. Let the outer builders cease their labors then, and let the inner workers enter on their cycle. Oh, Kristen, she joined us. Good. Okay, now this is, the rules of white magic are basically how to create or manifest things upon the physical plane through the contact with the soul, using soul and spiritual energies to manifest positive things upon the earth. That's what white magic is. It's not like conjuring up spirits from the dead and stuff like that, you know. But it's the greatest white magician noted by the book was Christ himself. He was a great, what you would call a white magician. Okay. Okay, now there's a couple people I think don't have their things on mute. Just stay on mute unless you have something to say. Okay. Okay. So anyway, we've been talking about groups and New Age groups that are going to bring in the age of Aquarius and the age of peace and light and love that everyone has been hoping for thousands of years, and the qualities that these groups will possess. And DK has told us that these groups, that there's certain individuals that the masters work through in the various groups upon the earth, and these people are called the new group of world servers. And these people are, some of them don't even know who they are, but they're just people that are sensitive, that just pick up things out of the air, so to speak. And they pick up an idea, and they may be involved in certain just ordinary groups, but they may pick up ideas that will help to move him and her and their friends or their groups forward in a positive way. And he talks a little bit about these disciples and what they need to do. He says that disciples need to link up with each other telepathically. The beginning of this will be the ability to recognize each other when they meet. So how about that with you guys? Do you, when you meet somebody, do you get a sense that they may be on the same wavelength as yourself?
I do, absolutely.
Okay, good. So did you get that about me?
Yeah, I think it, yeah, like a little bit higher though. Like you're like here and I'm like here. So, but I felt like there was some kind of connection though. Seriously, I was like, okay, I need to talk to him. Like,
yeah,
how's it happen? And then Katie joined the group, and then passed it off to me, and then it was like I had to know you, had to meet you, and had to talk to you for some reason.
So now you've actually participating in a meeting. Do you get like a feeling of fellowship with this group?
Yes, like I'm gonna blow up. Like
yeah.
the energy, like even like as like just with me and him here, and then doing that meditation and everything, it was mind blowing. It's really like it's hard to express it. we both think it was like he was telling me what the energy felt like. And it
Yeah,
felt like
none of us are here perfect, and there's always things to work through as we begin to work together. But overall, it's a very good group, and you get a feeling about people that you meet. And he says this is what disciples need to develop is ability to, the first step toward mental telepathy is to recognize people of a similar vibration to yourself. And have you ever met people that just seem to maybe they want to be your best friend, but they're just on a completely, totally different wavelength, and they just can't pick it up that you're here and the other guy is way over there.
Yeah.
I meet people that are seekers. The very first thing that pops in my head is I ask them, "You're a seeker, aren't you?" And they instantly know what you're talking about. And they say, "Yeah, that's me. You got it." You know, I didn't know the word, but yeah, that's it. You know.
That's a good question to ask them, Rick, because a true seeker, that word seeker kind of registers with them, if nothing else. Yeah. Yeah, here's another example I could talk about, maybe the person that's a little bit numb to mental telepathy. Say you have a visitor and you've got an appointment tomorrow, you got to get to bed or something, and you wish he would just leave, but he just wants to stay and talk and talk and talk. Okay, he just can't, and you give him little signals that, well, you know, you start yawning and you think, well, I got to get up early in the morning, and he still goes on and on and on. Have you ever met people like that? Okay, well, these people are not ready for mental telepathy. But then you have other people like, you know, close friends, you give them a slight hint and they can take it right away. They can pick up what you're thinking, and they think, oh, I better take off, you know. So you'll notice with your friends that some of them are fairly sensitive to your thought, and some of them are quite numb to your thinking. And the ones that are sensitive, you feel a lot closer to them. What do you think about that concept, Curtis? You've always got something to say.
Got to get demutified here. Yeah, I find that I find that in this group, I have an affinity towards everyone in this group, especially Asaf because he's sensitive and tenderhearted, and Stacy because he's quite mental and he's acknowledged and practiced in certain practices, and Ed because he's always there. You don't always know what Ed's thinking, but he's always thinking something.
Yeah.
You because I grew up with you, and you're the first person that acknowledged that I was a seeker, and then actually gave me food for thought. Deanie, I feel connected with her. She's very artistic and intuitive, and I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, you run into here in New Plymouth. I'm looking for people like that, especially in my line of work where I run into people all day long. And every now and then I'll run into a person that I have a strong connection with, and I'll give them some information and then follow up, plant little seeds. But but you're right about that. You do make a connection on the intuitive plane with the right people.
Yeah. So what do you think? You can practice on your friends, you know, about tuning into them, and then what do you suppose the next step of mental telepathy is?
You're going to tell us, right?
I give you my ideas.
Is it trying to read their thoughts when you're not with them? Like, I want to talk to you, please call?
Yeah, it's the next step is to put attention on people in your circle. There's a certain circle all of us have of people that are close to us, our spouses, our children, our friends, people in this group. So put attention on them, and there'll come times when you'll pick up a need or maybe a troubling feeling about them, that somebody needs help. Or sometimes you'll feel that the phone's going to ring, and then it does ring. And little things like this you can practice on, just by putting attention, because energy follows thought. This is a rule that is extremely important, or a law that's extremely important, and it's a key to developing a lot of different things. And so we're talking earlier about the guy that hangs around and he won't go away when you got other things to do. He's not putting attention on your thought. He's putting attention on himself. So he's got a wall up between him and everybody else. So he can't really register what's going on. So the first thing is, since energy follows thought, is put thought outside of yourself. So your thought is linked to people in your life that you want to have a connection with. And then always be open to the universe out there for new people to come in. And then when the right person shows up that's supposed to have some link to your life, you'll sense it. And this is the beginning of mental telepathy. And eventually, where this will eventually lead will be, you'll pick up impressions from other people, and then when you become a master, you'll be able to actually pick up words and sentences if that is important. So that's something to look forward to. He says, yeah.
I developed a little method years ago, back when it was in Stell, and I taught it to people, and they said it works every time. What I did was I created a little notebook that had, permanent pages, not tear out pages, kind of thing. And that was my telepathy book. And if I needed to get in touch with somebody, I made the conscious effort to write it down on the next page of that book. I need to get in touch with Joe. And every time Joe or whoever I wrote it about, they come knocking at my door or call me on the phone within minutes.
Really? Interesting.
That's a good question. I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know if it's a possibility, if, like, say I'm in a dream and I'm like at a dream that it's like not a dream, it's kind of like real. You're kind of on the sleeping edge, and if somebody can come and say something to you in your dream and pick it up, I want to know if that's real, because that just happened recently. So it's
well, yeah, that's entirely possible. See, when you dream, there's two parts that make you. Your emotional part, your feeling connection, and that's with your heart. And the second part is your mind. Okay, so when you go to sleep, your mind, the part of you that's actually the decision maker, leaves and returns to your soul. Your soul. Where your soul actually lives. Okay, now the part that stays with you is your emotional part, and that's why dreams are so nonsensical and have crazy stuff going on, because they're entirely generated by your feeling self. Okay, and so the part of you that can make decisions is somewhere else, and you don't remember that normally. It's possible to remember, but you don't remember where your mind actually went while you're sleeping. But it is there, and it is conscious, and your mind can connect with anybody else's mind from the soul level. And so if there's some type of connection that needs to be made, that you need a message from, say you can connect on the soul level, your mind can connect with somebody else's mind and says, we need to get this imprint sent back to my consciousness. Then they connect with the emotional self and send some type of impression. Now, the emotional self doesn't always make it entirely clear because it thinks more in images. And so you'll wake up with some type of impression. Now, when you wake up with an impression from the soul level, it often just hangs around for a few minutes and then it's gone. So you need to reinforce that memory or write it down right away, or else it'll just go away. You know, so it's really ephemeral. But,
also, on a note that with me and him, sometimes it's pretty interesting because sometimes we're not even using words. It's just like he'll go, I'll think something. It's like, okay, I'll go get that, but I hadn't said it yet. I mean, just silly things like that. But that's how connected we are, as far as it's just like just on a regular, normal basis, not anything. I mean, I'm not spiritually connected. It's just that we're together so much that we kind of read each other's thoughts, but we'll answer a question that hadn't been presented yet. So
right. And see, your higher self, or your soul, your higher self is always there, and your higher self can connect with anybody else's higher self. So you and your husband's higher selves are probably in communication on a regular basis, and the closer you get to spirit, the more you will be able to have nonverbal communication here upon the earth. So, and a little bit fulfillment of Jesus's words, like "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So the goal of disciples is to be able to do on earth as we do communicate from the higher self. And so it's pretty interesting. Now he says this, he predicts in the near future, he says we'll have a time when the units of the various groups scattered throughout the earth will be so close in contact that they will be able to meet each other at a set time and in a secret place. And almost pertains to us. We're meeting in a set time and in a not so much a secret. I guess it's a secret to some people, not a secret to us anyway, but that we're meeting here. And so that's kind of interesting. He says disciples need to align themselves with their souls so they'll be able to communicate internally and externally with other servants. 2 schools will emerge to assist students. He says students will need to be aware. Let me see, I don't see where it talks about those 2 schools. Anyway, he says 2 different schools will emerge to assist students in their progress. It says students need to be aware that on numerous levels, most people are aware of the physical and emotional, but we must include the mental and the intuitional. We need to be more aware during sleep. Okay, you know, everybody's aware of the emotional and part of the mental. Now, there's several parts of our mental cells. There's for one thing, there's the brain, and that's like a giant computer, and it's a piece of machinery that we all use. It's not really us. And then there's the lower mental, and then there's the higher mental, and most people have some type of access to the lower mental, but the higher mental, the person has to have a certain amount of soul contact to use the higher mental levels. And these higher mental levels, which put us in contact with intuition or pure reasoning. So the disciple, his goal is to reach that level where he can see pure reason. And those who have pure reason will not have a lot of arguments about politics, religion, the things that average people argue about. They'll be able to see eye to eye through pure reason and with the higher mental levels and the intuition. I mean, he says we need to be more aware during sleep. And one of the things he says about sleep is to, as you're going to sleep, put your attention on the light in the head and see yourself as being conscious as you're going to sleep. And this will help you to tune in more to your higher self. So when you wake up, you'll get impressions. Now, there's things going on during sleep where your higher self is working out impressions to send to you. So when you wake up, you'll be able to use these things. And many people, when they wake up, they don't remember anything that happened, but during the day, they will have different impressions come that their higher self developed during sleep. Sometimes it'll come during that short period between being awake and asleep. When you first wake up is the time you're closest to really tuning in to impressions from your higher self. So when you very first wake up, if you're just kind of in between being asleep and awake, just kind of stay there for a while and see what impressions come. And when, like I say, when the impressions come, you need to reinforce them or write them down so you remember them, because they're very ephemeral and they often slip away. So
one thing I do, Joe, if you have a hard time getting to sleep, close your eyes and you look up to your pineal gland or your third eye, and you'll find you're asleep before you can even realize that you went to sleep. You just focus right there with your eyes closed and you're gone.
Yeah, I read about an exercise doing that a while back. It's supposed to put you to sleep within 1 minute.
Now, I've never read an exercise. I just found it out on my own.
Oh, did
and
you?
Now I'm finding that it's other people know about it, so that's some intuitive level thing.
Yeah, I can't remember. I tried it out a couple times. It seemed to work pretty good, but I forgot about it. But yeah, this guy developed an exercise, says it puts you to sleep in about 30 seconds. And it was something like that. You look up to your third eye or something, and I'll have to see if I can find that. But it was kind of interesting exercise.
Well, I'll tell you how, because I do it all the time.
Yeah.
You just close your eyes and you just look up. You don't have to think about anything, about connecting or anything. You just look up and boom, 30 seconds, a minute later, you're waking up in the morning with all kinds of new impressions and weird dreams.
I've seen videos about that technique. They said it's like developed by the samurais, warriors that needed to recharge their cells quickly, and they just go to sleep and they had to do the same thing. They'd look up at the third eye and poof.
Yeah, interesting. Matter of fact, that's part of the way that the DK tells us that you can actually attain the consciousness of your higher self during sleep is keep that focus going as you're going to sleep, and you create like a passageway that connects you to your higher self.
Also found this is something probably nobody's ever even thought of, is when you do with a group of people, like 10, 12 people, if you do synchronized dancing, like in a circle or square dancing, that puts everybody on the same channel, and you begin picking up other people's thoughts that are in the dance with you. And I've seen it enough times that it's like, yeah, it works.
Yeah.
I volunteer to try that.
Okay.
Isn't that learning while you're sleeping? Isn't that called sleep school?
Well, there's different names for it, but there are schools in the realm of the higher self. and we're always learning, whether we're learning here or even during sleep. It's all part of the learning process. So that's probably one of the names. But okay, moving ahead here. He talks about the disciples won't seek to organize a church in this particular age or structure as in the past. The work is going to be more subjective than in the past times. It doesn't mean that we won't have organizations, but not going to have organizations that promote a dogma as in the past. It says enlightened groups will seek to speak each other's language and use each other's teachings, avoiding exclusiveness. They will focus on service above personal growth. And in the past, you know, all these groups that have really been successful have been concentrating on personal growth. We'll make sure you're successful, have lots of money, friends, lovers, and so on. But the new groups will concentrate on what they can give rather than what they can get. And this will be the mindset of those that will help to bring in the new age. Schools will emerge teaching modes of meditation, intensification of vibration, and the laws of the universe will be taught, and the right use of color and of sound. Now that's an interesting science in itself, the right use of color and sound. And they are doing experiments. They've done quite a bit of development since he's written this book about sound and color in healing. And for instance, they found out that blue is a very calming color for people that are too tense, and yellow and red are stimulates vitality. Green is a very healing color associated with the heart. And so these different colors will be used in healing as well as sound. There's several places on the internet have some interesting information on sound, that different types of sound vibrations and notes that when they vibrate will produce certain effects on certain parts of the body. One place I went to, what it told you to do is take one of your earphones and take the covering off of it, and then play this sound on the internet and put that earphone on the part of your body that you want stimulated, and play a particular sound, and then that vibration goes through your body and it's supposed to promote healing. You have to have the right tone and the right vibration. But there's a couple places on the internet that do stuff like that if you want to research into it. If somebody wants to research into that and post it on the group, that would be interesting. I kind of played around with it, but I'm in pretty good health most of the time anyway, so it didn't make a lot of difference.
You can download what they call the list of rife frequencies. There's like 10 pages or so, and it covers every possible disease. It's just tune into this particular frequency.
Yeah.
There's lists out there on the internet already.
Yeah, there is. They've done people have done quite a bit of thinking on this, and so according to the theory that you if you say have liver problems or something, you can get a frequency that will stimulate your liver and have that sound vibrate, and it will adjust the vibration of your liver so it will heal, so to speak. And that's kind of the theory behind that. But
that actually worked on me, JJ.
Have you tried that?
I have, absolutely. I was having an appendicitis attack every year about the same time, and it wasn't bad enough to be surgically removed. So I went to a woman who was an alternative medicine person, and she gave me, it was like a TENS unit. She had 4 knobs on it. She dialed it into the vibration of a healthy appendix, because my appendix was not healthy. The vibration was off. So she put the vibration of a healthy appendix on me, and the pain quit. Just being curious myself, I took the thing off and the pain came back. So I put it back on, did it a couple more times just to prove to myself that it really was stopping. And I have not had an appendicitis attack since.
Oh,
And
interesting.
this was over 10 years ago.
Huh. Well, another thing with sound is those crystal Tibetan bowls. And they make some very interesting sounds. And also, other healers are using tuning forks, different types of tuning forks that produce different types of sound. So there's a lot of interesting experiments going on in the New Age community with sound and color.
There's a book out about this bell ringer. He's ringing a bell for the Salvation Army, and it has a certain sound to it.
There is. I wonder how that works out.
Yeah, and it attracts a high vibration of people,
Yeah.
which are pretty much here today. So yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Ring that bell.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Curtis. Okay, DK says this. He says, world unity, brotherhood in its true sense, the growth of telepathic interplay, the elimination of non-essentials, which serve to separate the thoughts of men and bring about separateness on the physical plane, and laying of a true emphasis upon the fundamentals of the ageless wisdom, the manifestation of a true understanding, the bringing about of atonement with the soul, or at one Mondays he calls it, the recognition of those who belong to the group of New World servers. This is the immediate work to be done and must engross our attention. Okay, one thing that he says here that's kind of good to put emphasis on is elimination of non-essentials. When you think of your daily life, how much time do all of us spend on the non-essentials? Like maybe rambling around on Facebook too much. Facebook is interesting in the fact that you could spend 24 hours a day and not on Facebook if you really wanted to, or the internet itself. But eliminate the non-essentials so that you can focus more on what is important in your life. Adam, are you there, Adam? Okay, now you look like a efficient guy. You just seem like a very efficient guy. Even though you are probably pretty careful with your time, do you see ways that you can improve?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I used to watch a ton of sports. Was big into sports. Not so much anymore, but I can get lost in games if I'm not careful.
Oh yeah, there's so much on TV, cable, internet, isn't there? You could spend all your time, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite sports to watch?
It's kind of evolved over time. Basketball used to be my passion. Football, college football still, but soccer more recently. I'm a big Barca fan, by the way, Robert.
Oh, really? I could never get into soccer. I like playing it, but I never didn't like. I kind of get bored watching it.
Yeah,
I love watching college football. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
But it is the most popular sport in the world, so I'm probably missing something. I haven't really watched it enough, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a real appreciation for what can be done with the feet. So.
Yeah. But on the other hand, you can't go one extreme or the other. You got to give yourself a little pleasure in life. So, you know, if you enjoy football or soccer or whatever, give yourself a little entertainment there, because there's certain wheels within that need greased so that you can function as a whole person. And so you don't want to develop too one-sided. You don't want to spend all your time just reading metaphysical stuff or spiritual stuff. There's time for friends, times for recreation. There's a time and place for everything. But what the person needs to do is take stock, say, well, where am I wasting my time? And so how close are you, Adam, to kind of getting where you think you're fairly efficient? You think you're 90% there, 50% there? What do you think? How do you take stock of yourself?
I think much more efficient than I used to be. Maybe 80%. Weekends kind of have to be careful. I start to, you know, if I'm not moving, doing something, engaged in, you know, even if it's just doing something around the house, then you know, I start to feel it. You know, it's easy to get your emotions. You get down just by virtue of, you know, being too lethargic and sitting around too much. So I've got to be moving. But I try, you know, like you say, you got to balance, and I try and allow myself a weekend or two where I am just relaxing and maybe watching games, or in the evening, I always, you know, give yourself an hour, watch a TV show or something, kind of unwind.
Yeah. Well, if you're 80% there, that's probably about as good as most seekers are, because getting above 80% takes some real focus, I think. Okay. Anybody else have any comment on that idea?
Well, you can't create a vacuum in your life. You have to have some plan, something that you fill your attention with, and because whatever you put in your attention, that's where your life goes.
Yeah.
So it's good to have something beneficial that you plan to do.
Right, that's a good point. And also, you can kind of train yourself as to what you like. And so the disciple should have a love for that which takes him in the right direction. If you focus, say, if you're a big, say, football fan and you just watch it all the time, fine, but that love you have for football, you need to transmute it into some of that, at least, into love for service of humanity, gaining more knowledge and wisdom, and the things that really count. So it's important that that which we love, the energy of love within us, is pointed the right direction. Because if you love something, you eventually start to excel at it. Have you ever taken a class in college or school that you didn't like at all? I have. One time, I remember in high school, the class I was going to take, they dropped or something, and the only thing that was available was bookkeeping, and I just hated bookkeeping. And I did terrible in that class. I barely passed it, and I all the time I was in there, I don't think I learned one thing. But if you love something, you're going to learn a lot more about it. And I still don't like bookkeeping. My wife handles all of our books, thank God. But anyway, this he says, this and this alone warrants the expenditure of all that any of you have to give: love and life, time and money. This and this alone justifies your existence and calls forth from all of you who respond to the vision that utter self-sacrifice, which is so rare and so far-reaching in its fix. the casting of all that one has at the feet of the Lord of life, in order that the work of the world's salvage may go forward, the elimination out of one's life of all that can possibly hinder, that's the difficult part we're talking about, the giving of all that one has until it hurts to give. That's an interesting statement. And sometimes that's the difference between the person that really has the spiritual contact and the one that don't, is he's willing to give even if it hurts some to give. The ruling of one's life on the basis of surrender, asking oneself all the time, what can I relinquish in order that I may help more adequately? That and more than that lies ahead of all of you who hear the call and respond to the need and the opportunity. So the opportunity for service and to make a difference is there. But he says that the sacrifice that's needed, he says, is rare among even disciples. He says they just don't understand the dedication that it takes to really move them ahead and move the work ahead the way it's needed. And this book was written back in 1934. And when I see all the anticipations he had for accomplishments of disciples that were supposed to be going on now, I think he'd be a little bit disappointed that we haven't accomplished as much as he hoped. But on the other hand, we probably have developments that even the masters didn't see completely. I wonder how clearly they saw the internet and what we have available now. Back then, he was talking about groups getting together by mail and maybe telephoning each other and things like this. But now we have much more opportunities to communicate and be one more than ever before. But what's interesting is sometimes the more opportunity you have, the more things are taken for granted and the less it is used. So I think back to when I was in the Mormon church, I studied a lot about early Mormon history, and what really amazed me was that my great-great-grandfather would go into a town as a missionary for the church, and he'd wind up baptizing a couple hundred people within a week or two, and I thought, that's amazing. And then I went on a mission for the church, and the average baptismal rate in mission in England where I was 1 or 2 people a year, and I thought, how in the world did my great-great-grandfather go to England and baptize? He baptized over 3,000 people. How did he do that?
Wilford Woodruff?
Yeah, Wilford Woodruff. And I thought, how in the world did that happen? And you read these early accounts of these early Mormon missionaries of how they had this tremendous success. And now the Mormon missionaries can't hardly have any success. Yeah, they have many more tools. And the same thing with anything you're doing. It's really, we have all these tools, yet if you have a good idea, it's hard to get through. And it finally dawned on me why, about the difference. The early Mormon missionaries, when they went into a town, they'd go into a town and they'd put up a notice in the center of a town that they were going to have a meeting, and they rented a hall. Okay, they rented a hall, it said, and then they put up a notice. There was always a place in the center of town where everybody looked to see what was going on. Now, back in those days, nobody had a TV, and they were starved for entertainment. There was nothing happening in a lot of these towns. They would go weeks with nothing going on, nothing to do. So they go to the center of the town, they see that notice, these Mormon missionaries who are supposed to be, everybody says they're in league with the devil, are going to have this meeting. Okay. So half of the town shows up for the meeting because it's the only game in town. There was nothing else for them to do. So even though they had no internet, no TV, no telephones, no way to advertise outside of that just putting up a flyer in the middle of town or a notice, half the town came out to almost anything that went on. So if you had an idea back a couple hundred years ago, and you were willing to travel and preach about it or teach about it, you could get a lot of attention. And it was actually easier back then than it is now. Now you have an idea, and unless you really can make a breakthrough and make something go viral on YouTube, it takes, you have so much competition out there that it's much harder to get attention now than it was in the times of the Wild West, because there's so much competition for entertainment. And so that difference is just really amazing. So it takes a lot of dedication in this day and age to get a good spiritual idea across to humanity, because there's so many things out there. There's about, I don't know, 1,000 different people out there claiming to be in contact with God, Jesus, flying saucers, all kinds of things, telling us about the salvation for the world, second coming of Christ, the end of the world, teachings. So there's so much competition that when a real light is manifest, it's competing against all kinds of things. I often wonder, let's suppose that the Christ himself showed up just as the average guy, and he comes on the internet and starts teaching. Look at all the competition the guy has. I mean, how can he compete with someone that says, if people really believe it, that says this guy is in contact with Zor from another star system, and they're going to come help us to avoid calamity. Well, there's going to be a tremendous calamity and earthquakes and wars, and just certain number of people are going to be saved or whatever, and these flying saucers are going to come salvage people. And so if Christ were here, he's got all this type of stuff to compete against. So how many people would be able to recognize him as compared to all these other kind of interesting messages out there that kind of grab your attention? So he's going to have a lot of competition if he were to just show up as a regular teacher. So it's interesting.
Well, a lot of those teachings, Joe, that you talked about, like Nanu from Arcturus coming down, their messages are mostly fear-based or emotionally polarized, where the Christ his words would be soul-reaching. They would set himself apart just by the power of his words. They would, you go, aha, wow, this guy, I'm riveted to every word that he's saying because it's moving me, it's stimulating my spirit and my soul, where the average guy who makes stuff up has no such impact.
Right, and this is where the mental telepathy comes in, where you're sensitive to other people's vibrations. But when the true servants do come, you pick up, hey, there's something a little different about this guy than that flying saucer guy, So, he's actually making sense. But that's one of the things, the teachers of light, above everything else, the one thing that they do that others do not do is they will make sense. Okay, so but many of the searchers make the mistake of instead of looking at whether or not they make sense and are in harmony with light, they look at something that appeals to the emotions, even though it may not make sense at all. It may appeal to the emotions in such a way that they think, boy, this is true. This would really be something. You know, if the Space Brothers are going to land on the White House lawn on July 4th, you know, I better get ready. You know, and so it's interesting that how many people are diverted into areas of illusion, and there's so much out there that this is kind of the dividing sword. The dividing sword is truth itself, and truth itself rings in the soul, and it will ring in the soul if the disciple is focused on soul contact, and this is so important. Okay, any other comments on questions on that?
I think you have to trust your own judgment, and I think that the higher you grow in spiritual evolution, the more you recognize the truth from fiction.
Yeah. That recognizing truth from fiction is so important. A lot of people, have you noticed a lot of people that are into metaphysics and New Age philosophy, they're interested in, say, 3 or 4 different teachers, and these 3 or 4 different teachers are all teaching things that are opposed to each other. Yet because they sound good, they like them all. You know? And they don't try to discern, well, this guy's teaching one thing and this guy's teaching the opposite. They both can't be true. But the guy likes the sound of both of them, so he accepts them both. You know, like one guy may say there is reincarnation, another guy may say there isn't, but the guy likes the sound of both of them, so he accepts them both. But they both can't be true. One, either there is reincarnation or there isn't reincarnation, for instance. And so the disciple, and this is one of the key things that DK puts a lot of emphasis on, is discernment. The disciple must develop a power to discern light from darkness, right from wrong, truth from error. And this is a problem with many New Age groups, is they don't put much attention on the discernment part. They put a lot more attention on the fantastic teachings. The more fantastic they are, the more they like them, instead of looking for what's the actual truth and the true principles behind everything. Okay, we're reaching the end of the class. Is there any comments or questions before we close it out here?
I say that there's many truths that are being taught, and it all comes from the one source. And it's like a prism. It comes and it's divided into different colors, but it's all part of the mandala of life. It's like if you dump this crossword puzzle on the table, you begin to work with the pieces. You know what pieces don't belong there. You know what makes the picture, that from your intuition, from the soul that you are, you know what's true.
Right, and there's that prism brings up another concept, is sometimes you'll have 2 teachers with the same type of enlightenment, but they will teach in a different slant, but they're saying the same thing. But sometimes students have a hard time seeing that they're saying the same thing because they use different definition of words or so on. So that's another area of discernment that's important, is to be able to see when 2 people that are saying things a little differently are really saying the same thing. And that will often happen with 2 true teachers. And so we have to look for the synthesis, the things that bring people together. But then there are times when there are a lot of false teachings out there that have to be recognized also. There's a lot of discernment that has to be applied by the seekers out there, that It's a full-time job. It's like they say about liberty, that it's a constant, eternal struggle of vigilance to obtain liberty. And it's the same way with seeking truth from error. It's an eternal struggle to always keep that discernment sensitivity within yourself open, so that you can discern truth from error as it presents itself. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Well, there are many truths that are beyond our experience, and that doesn't mean they're not true. This means that we have no mental equivalent. We have no, we haven't done the basics to understand that truth. So we just put it aside. We don't try to say it's evil or wrong. We just say it for the moment, it's not for me. And then from your sense of pure reason, you know what it is that you should be looking at. You know what's true for yourself at that time.
Right.
But as we evolve, we become more aware. As you climb higher in the tree, you see farther down the path.
Right. You bet. There's certain things that the disciple will always be putting on the shelf, because certain things that you just don't know for sure. Well, you put those on a shelf. Don't pretend you do know, but put it on the shelf, and one by one, those things on the shelf eventually get solved as you go through life, and as we enter the afterlife. These things on the shelf get solved. But solve as much as we can, and then put on the shelf what we don't know, expecting to know at one time or another. And if you really want to know about those things on the shelf, if you put a lot of energy into it, and thought and attention, your higher self will figure out a way to give you the answer. Okay, it was great to have the new people here today, and we will have another meeting next Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, all being well. And good to see you again, and we will see you next week.
I'm sorry. I apologize. What did you say about 10 a.m.? I was waving at people. Sorry.
We'll be posting it, but next meeting will be 10 a.m. next Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what?
Mountain Time.
This week, what I'm going to focus on is making soul contact with people that I meet, that I interact with. I like that statement where the Tibetan says, enter your brother's heart and try to empathize with him where he is. And you know, you're going to meet people all week long. Try to make a contact or a connection, a soul connection with them. Just see where that gets you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just have a goal like that every week about how you're going to take a step forward in your progression. So that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comment or questions?
If we're not able to make it, like, it's 10 a.m. next Sunday, and we always have church at 11 a.m. Is this recorded to where we can?
Yes, we record everything. So I'll be posting this meeting later today.
Okay.
Or well, wait.
Parking lot with it, but until 11.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, we're really glad to see you too, and everybody else. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Have a great week.
We will see you next week then.
Great.
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good night.